Are you done talking? Tell me, baby, are you done talking? Yeah.
No, we are not done talking. This is Talk the Tings, the ACWWS YouTube channel. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Talk the Tings by the Association of Caribbean Women Writers and Scholars. I'm Asha Weir-Soley and this is my lovely co-host Jasmin Singletary. Jasmin just returned from Carnival in Trinidad a few weeks ago, and I got to tell you, Jasmin, I'm really jealous because when I was growing up in New York in my 20s, I used to frequent the West Indian Day parade on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn every year, and I even went to Caravana, in Toronto a couple of times, but I've never been to Carnival in Trinidad, and I've always wanted to go. It just never happened. So you just got back from Sweet T&T, boy. Was this your first time, and what was it like, and what does Carnival mean to you?
Well, it wasn't my first time playing Mas, but yes, it was my first time in Trinidad, and it was amazing. So Carnival to me is exotic food, loud music, it's energy, rudeness, debauchery, scantily clad women and men, costumes, dancing, and lots and lots and lots of rum. It's a time for a joyous celebration in which participants and observers alike, we're just connected in this experience of breaking away from life's daily routine. So I don't feel like I'm doing it justice. Here's a clip of Carnival 2019.
Oh, awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I know you did some research on Carnival before you went, and it partly inspired this trip. Could you tell us a little bit about your research?
Yes, of course. So according to scholar Melissa Riggio, Carnival is more than a way of life. It's more of a way of life than a festival. Its way of life depends on display, confrontation, competition, and repeated reconciliation among peoples of many different colors and backgrounds.
Okay.
So Carnival developed during the time of slavery in the Caribbean, North, Central, and South America, where Africans were brought as involuntary laborers. Carnival originated in one of two ways. In mostly British-owned territories, at the end of the year, during the holidays, the slaves were given a brief reprieve, allowed to celebrate Christmas and New Year's without the slave master's intervention.
Okay. So how were these celebrations used by the slaves?
So they were used by the slaves to maintain their African customs, like dressing up, incorporating elements of their familiar folk expressions into this new world.
And how did the colonizers use this?
The colonizers used this as a way to break the tension that built up on the plantations between the slave masters and the slaves. People.
That makes sense. Okay.
Rosita Sands, she points out that these celebrations, they served as psychological and emotional release from the regimented lifestyle of the enslaved people, and it's a purging of feelings that were allowed little, if any, opportunity for expression.
That makes a lot of sense. What's an example of this kind of carnival?
Okay, so as I said before, there's two types of carnivals that originated, one of which is the post-Christmas celebrations. An example of that would be Junkanoo, which is celebrated in the Bahamas.
Oh, in Jamaica too. Awesome.
Nice.
Okay. That's interesting because in his book, Bacchanal, The Carnival Culture of Trinidad, Peter Mason says that most countries have a carnival. But Carnival is Trinidad, and Trinidad is Carnival. It is hard to think of anywhere else where a festival is invested with so much year-round importance, preparation, and anticipation, where any event takes a nation over so completely or so neatly brings together so many aspects of its culture or its strengths and weaknesses as well. Carnival, he says, it's not just a 2-day event for the average Trinidadian. It is an all year round statement of identity. He further says that while Carnival in Brazil may boast larger crowds, Trinidad is Carnival's true spiritual home. Do you agree with this? And historically, how is Carnival in Trinidad different from the one you mentioned in the Bahamas, Junkanoo festival you mentioned in the Bahamas?
That's a lot. That's quite intense and deep. Trinidad being Carnival's true spiritual home. Actually, I agree with that. I agree with that statement. I mean, it was my first time in Trinidad as well as the Carnival there, but I could tell that there was a unique energy and the way that they perceived the celebration. It wasn't just a festival, it was indeed a way of life.
Wow.
And the way that people kind of approach life. You know, this is a time for them to really be free and at home with their authentic selves. The difference between the celebration in Trinidad and Junkanoo and Bahamas and Jamaica, as you said. Well, I haven't yet visited Junkanoo, but it's bigger in Trinidad. It's much bigger. It's more of a tourist geared celebration than Junkanoo. Carnival now has reached the point where it's being named as the greatest show on earth. So you have many different people that are outside of the native cultures of Trinidad. So outside of African descendant and Indian, you have people coming from all over the planet to participate in the celebration.
And Trinidad is like 40% like African descendant and about 40% Indo-Trinidadian descendant, and then 20% other. Is that correct?
Yeah,
like that's about right?
About right. I believe actually there are more Indo-descendant than African descendant, but yes, it's around those numbers.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, I've heard that although Carnival is not a national holiday, most people take like 2 days off, and the bosses are very understanding about this. Did you see this? Did you get that sense?
I didn't witness that firsthand about whether or not people took off, but it seemed that this is actually my first time hearing that it's not a national holiday, because it seemed like that everyone participated in it, but I'm not sure if they asked permission or not.
Okay, So in her book, Cultural Conundrums, Gender, Race, Nation, and the Making of Caribbean Cultural Politics, Natasha Barnes identifies Carnival as a site of particularly urgent questions about the status of subaltern resistance, or a site for the accommodation of that resistance. She further argues that some critics believe that the masking, the reversal that you see during Carnival, the mirroring as well, potentially circumvents direct political engagement. And she gives an example. She says that traditionally carnival costumes were inspired by themes that had specific cultural, social, or political relevance. But starting in the 1980s, a Rio-styled pageantry, right, based on the Brazil Carnival, of skimpier outfits began to shift the aesthetic. Some argue that today's Carnival participants are more interested in being seen, right, making a spectacle of their barely clad bodies on display, doing the whine and the walk up in the heat to the beat of the steel drums and to the soca and calypso music, than in making any political statement. I don't necessarily agree with that, but what do you think?
I think that is a common perception that a lot of folks have outside of Carnival. In fact, when I returned, there was a bit of a social media scandal. Joe Budden had said some insensitive comments about how African Americans were going to the festival and acting like hoes. And so the backlash was the fact that he was implicitly implying that those who participate in it, those who are already native, West Indian women who are participating in it, are, promiscuous for celebrating this festival, and that, you know, Black American women that are engaging in it are being a little bit more loose and inhibited because they get to go over there, and that's the general atmosphere of the festival. So there were definitely a lot of backlash, and rightfully so. Joe Biden just needs to hush his mouth for now.
You think?
But there's definitely been, over the years, a lot of controversy as far as what is now referred to as pretty mas. So wearing the feathers and the beads and things like that, and being a little bit more scantily clad, is kind of seen as just a spectacle, as you said. But I do believe that there are still elements of the traditional carnival that are present that does have political and social undertones. So it's a little bit of both, but I believe it's the motivation in which you play mas that makes a big difference. And for those who are outside, you know, looking on the inside like Joe Budden, I think you should kind of keep your comments to yourself, but until you experience carnival for yourself.
Okay. So pretty much you can still whine. Basically, you're saying you can still whine, play mas, make a political statement, right? The two are not mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Especially now when there's a lot more women who are involved in you know, soca music and so on. I think that makes a lot of sense. Do you feel like women are more free now that they're no longer held captive to repressive narratives of respectability, such as that one you just voiced, or is it easier, as Gordon Roller said some time ago, to sexually objectify and exploit women under the guise of liberation and agency?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think that more women are feeling liberated. I think that you'll always have that element of objectification and exploitation. There's always that risk, especially like when you have people such as Joe Budden that totally miss the point of carnival. But from what I've saw, the women were the ones that were in control. They were the ones with the agency, so they could choose who they wanted to dance with, or if they wanted to dance with anyone at all. And it was really just a moment of complete euphoria and bliss, and just completely being your authentic self. So I think again, it's the motivation that you have when you play mas, but you do have to realize that there are folks who will mistake your freedom for you know, being sexually free or promiscuous, but you don't have to take that label on.
Right. And choice is important for women, and agency is important as well. I mean, it's different if someone is objectifying you, but if you're choosing to make a spectacle of yourself, it's yourself. And trust me, you only have that young looking body up to a certain point, unless you've had a lot of surgeries. So if there's going to be a time when you want to do that, I think you should have that choice.
Speaking of bodies, I mean, all types of bodies were present. There were pregnant women that were there, and they were in their costumes, and they were looking glorious and fabulous. There were women of all sizes, and there's still, of course, you know, the element of a specific size that you're supposed to be kind of buying into the beauty construct, but I think women do feel a lot more liberated because they could just go out there and just be free.
So most women were not co-opted by that beauty construct or that size construct. They were basically subverting it.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So I can go.
Yes.
Do you know who won for Best Band this year?
Oh, man. I can't recall at the top of my head, but my band, we were tied for third place.
Ooh, what was your band?
Paparazzi.
All right, okay. What was the wildest costume that you saw?
The wildest costume. Oh my. I can't recall at the top of my head, but I saw a couple of celebrities in my band.
Really? Who?
Little Kim had one of
the
gorgeous costumes.
Is that right?
It wasn't wild, but it was very, very beautiful.
Oh, that's nice. So who else was there besides her?
I saw Maya, the singer Maya.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then I saw Chili. Chili and I had a
Chili
little moment.
Oh, really?
We had a little black girl magic
That's
moment.
really nice.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know this. Okay. Was there like a lot of street theater? Like I've read and heard that there's sometimes like a lot of street theater performances or just people performing impromptu.
There was some impromptu performances, but not a lot of street theater. I was actually looking forward to that, and I didn't get to witness too much of that.
Okay. What about Kitty Carnival? Did you see that?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I wasn't present for that.
Okay. What about Juve? I found out from, doing a little bit of research that just means day open or something. Daybreak, right. So that's Monday morning, right?
Yes.
And the proper pronunciation is Juve.
Juve, yes.
Juve. Were you there for Juve?
Yes, I was. So with Juve,
what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. So Juve is daybreak, and pretty much you party until the daybreak. So from the wee hours of the morning, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning until about 7 a.m. You're in the street behind the truck, and you're partying until the sun comes up, and it's amazing. It's beautiful.
That sounds awesome. Were you able to keep up with all those Trinis?
Yes, I was.
You were. I'm proud of you. I don't think I would have been able to keep up with all of them. Okay, so I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with us and your beautiful headdress. I hope that we can see a clip with the full costume at some point. Yes. That would be awesome. So stay tuned for that clip. But even before that, I want you to stay tuned for a clip from Asha Manoo-Rahming, who visited with my students on March 19th. I asked her to read her poem Trinitabanca from her book Curry Flavor. And she explained that tabanca means heart sickness. The poem is about a Trinidadian woman, presumably the poet, who lives elsewhere but came to Trinidad for Carnival in 1992. And she's heartsick when she has to get on the plane to return to the Bahamas and leave her beautiful Trinidad and Carnival behind. So I suspect that this feeling is quite common when Carnival season is over. Or maybe after all that jumping up and whining, everyone is tired and want to go home. I don't know. Said by someone who is jealous because she didn't get to go to Carnival. So I guess you're a real Jamette now, huh?
I am personally experiencing tabanca. I wish I could go back. It was amazing.
All right. Well, on that note, stay tuned for Trinitabanca by Asha Manoo-Rahming, and stay tuned also for Jasmin's clip from her Carnival experience in 2019. Thank you. We're out.
What does tabanca mean in Trinitabanca?
Oh, right, you wanted that one read.
I love that one.
You want me to read that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Now I have to go to the contents for that one.
Okay.
Tabanca means heart sickness.
Okay. Heartache.
Yeah, so it could be, typically it's for people, right? So lovers. And like if you, they have another word they use. Anyway, somebody leave you, a lover leaves, and then you have tabanca. But we also had Curry Tabanca was a calypso by the mighty Trini. Right. You know that calypso?
Yes.
Okay, so it's kind of like it's I wouldn't say it's inspired by that, but I'm thinking of Curry Tabanca when I'm writing Trinitabanca. Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this was in Carnival 92. So we were in Trinidad for Carnival 92, and this poem is about leaving Trinidad after Carnival. So, Trini Tabanca. Home is where heart and a body racked by pain, saying farewell to a mountain rain, chip into the tassa in the violet dawn of a Juve morning. When the devil day, jab in black oil, brown mud and wine girl, gyrating, molesting the Southtronics truck. 12-year-old with sleepless eyes, beat out the rhythm of a seasoned panman on a silver oil drum. Her tender baby fingers rugged around rubber-tipped pan sticks. Daiquiri roti, pilau, callaloo, olo, white magic, Bentley on a hot, breezy, pretty much Tuesday. Form a line and wine and something. If you can't get a woman, take a man. Feathers, sequins, tinsel, oscillate, smooth sparklers, sirens, rotate lasciviously across the savannah, enticing setting sun and mountain range to copulate in a last lap before Ash Wednesday, when we bathe in ashes and pretend we're sorry we didn't let Satan have all the fun. Now flying in the plane above the mountain, away from this land, pain had me crying in my heart for where home is.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and hit that bell for the notification for the next episode of Talk the Tings by the Association of Caribbean Women Writers and Scholars. And our next episode, I think, will feature a cameo by Spice, who was here at FIU for the Bayfest Festival. Thank you. See you soon.